Hello and welcome to Public Health Leaders' Voices, the show where we unpack real-world leadership stories from people shaping healthier systems. I'm your host, Amjad Saeed, and today I'm thrilled to sit down with Professor Adam Elshaug. Adam is a public health leader and internationally recognized for his pioneering work in measuring and reducing low value care, and for steering health policy conversation toward value. He is a professor of health policy at University of Melbourne, director of its Centre for Health Policy, and an advisor to bodies ranging from Australia's Medicare Review Advisory Committee to the UK's NICE. I chose Adam for two reasons for this podcast. The first one, his career journey from a clinician scientist to a global policy advisors, offer a masterclass in adaptive leadership. Second, as I work in my MPH capstone on value-based healthcare, Adam, one of my supervisor, and to be honest, had inspired me with his unique leadership approach. So, Adam, thank you for joining me here.
Jed, it's my pleasure. That's a very nice introduction. Thank you.
No worries. Let's start. Our talk will be divided into two parts. The first one's just a general reflection on the leadership, and the other one is more narrowed to a specific area. Let's start with the first one, which is, Adam, have you ever seen yourself as a leader, or did your role like emerge over time?
I definitely did not set out to be a leader. It emerged. It was not something I planned at all. Um, it just came, I guess, through me doing my job day by day, and to a point where you find yourself in a position where um, people are encouraging you or asking you to take on additional responsibilities and roles, and some of those have to do with leadership. So that's how I found myself here.
I see. I have a question. Like, is it something like people born with leadership, or something like it could be like acquired or learned?
I think it has to be acquired or learned. I think even if people feel as though they have an innate sense of wanting to be a leader, I would suggest some of those people probably shouldn't be a leader. Um, um, I think even if you're a natural leader, if you're a confident leader, or if you're a bit more of a reluctant leader,
Mm.
everybody should take the time to try and learn good leadership skills because um, it does require many different skills to be a good leader. And I can't even say that I'm very good at all of them. So.
No. Speaking of skills, I was like wondering what is the skill set, or maybe like three main skill set that set for a public health leaders, and maybe how you define leadership, and then what is the skills that is needed to be like a leader in a public health field.
Yeah. Um, I would say, and I haven't been given these questions in advance, so I'm thinking as I go. I would say there are three, and my three would be in no specific order. Um, I think you benefit from having some strategic insight into the future direction of your organization or where you might want to go and how that fits in with your um, larger organization that often you're part of or the larger organizational context. So strategic insight, number one. Um, I do believe a level of technical ability. So I think you need to understand the work that's occurring, certainly in the field of academia that we're in, some understanding of the methods and the theories that are applied within the organization that I lead. So I'm part of the team in terms from an academic and expertise perspective. And the third, probably most important, is having good emotional quotient. So not necessarily IQ, but EQ, as we say, and that is understanding people and caring for people and understanding that people within your organization come with a whole host of different backgrounds and experiences and a whole spectrum of potentialities. And trying to support those people to live up to those potentialities requires a good baseline knowledge of human nature and how you can really harness the best out of people, both as individuals, but also as a group.
Fabulous. I would like to reflect on the last part because we learned, and the subject is when you want to lead people, you should lead yourself first. And you
Mhm.
should lead your emotions and what is happening inside you, so you have the ability to lead what is around you. So this point is just reflecting on that part, which is emotional intelligence. Is it something you learn it while you're going, like practicing, or something like you just read it on the books and you can grab it? Because it's really
Yeah.
tricky, Adam, it's really tricky.
It is tricky. Look, I actually think for most people who have some level of EQ, it is innate. It's not really trained. It is there naturally. That, or it has developed over an entire life course. It's not something that one day you wake up and say, right, today I'm going to have much more emotional quotient. I think it's something that is learned and developed over time. But I think there's always opportunity to refine it and enhance it and to apply it to be more effective from a leadership perspective. Um, because it ties in with one of the other qualities that I talked about and that is around strategic insight. And in order to understand, having the emotional quotient to understand people in their place and how it is that they've arrived within your organization that you're leading, but also knowing how you can harness that with others around them to lead in a strategic direction going forward, is something that I do think it can be trained a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like going back to when you were talking about that strategic skills, I just have a thought that I want to reflect on is, I think every leader now is working on strategy and how to build KPIs and futuristic plans. I have a personal thought, and I'm reading that is leaders, the true leaders, should not only planning strategically for their organization. And instead, they should also keep an eye on the impact and how to measure impact.
Yes.
Yeah, is there for like to be prepared for a leadership position? Uh, should we like look at that aspect hand in hand, or building the strategic first and see the impact measurement? Or what
Yeah.
do you think on the impact measurement part? Is it like overseen or something that we should think about it more?
I appreciate the question because it's something that is very prominent within modern day academia, and that is impact. And in fact, some universities and some faculties have impact as part of their catchphrase, right? So it's actually critical for individuals and collectives, whether it's a centre or units or groups of researchers, but particularly at the individual level, I think it's always important for academics, particularly, to ask themselves what they consider to be impact for them. How do they define impact in their work? Um, it does strike me that I still have meetings with individual academics when we do their performance development reviews and things like that, and they will quite often say to me, "Well, something I want to focus on in the future is impact and having more policy translation or impact." And if I ask them what that is, picture it in their mind, what is impact defined by them? Some people struggle with that concept to understand exactly what the impact is because they're so busy in their day-to-day work um, that they have trouble looking further afield or further down into the future to think about how that could have the biggest and best possible impact. Um, and I think about that not only for myself as an individual, but I think about it for the groups who work within our centre, but also our centre more broadly, and even our school going forward. So I think it's actually very key and a fundamental part of leadership is to have some sense of what impact looks like, and therefore forming strategies to achieve that level of impact.
Yeah, I agree with you. And from my perspective, I see like impact is something it's hard to measure. So this is why some people like see it as a vivid. And but things when you can measure it, you can manage it. So
Yeah,
hopefully, yeah, to build like mechanism to measure
yeah.
impact in future. Uh Fabulous. Like the last question in the first part, Adam, if you could like whisper an advice to Adam on day one of his first leadership role, what would you say?
Have more confidence.
Confidence. Tell me
Confidence.
more.
Um, I've never considered myself as somebody who strategically set out to be a leader, and I still even have trouble with that as a different definition. Um, Partly because in academia we operate in a bit more of a flat structure. We don't have that hierarchical pyramid structure that a lot of businesses operate in, for example. Um, and I think often in academia there is this syndrome people talk about as the imposter syndrome, is that everybody is not really entitled to be where they are. They're not a bona fide, and that person over there deserves to be where they are because they're better at what they do and they're very good, but I'm not quite there yet. So I think that can hold you back a little bit. I think it's real, and I'm not dismissing it as something that is experienced. Um, but it's counterproductive to being a good leader, I believe. And I believe you can consider that and consider overcoming that while still being a nice person, and having a high emotional quotient, but having a little bit more confidence that whether you think you deserve it or not, you are in your role as a leader, and leaders have responsibilities to lead. So having more confidence to do that, I think, would be my own little pep talk to myself from early days.
Yeah, that's really fabulous. You mentioned like one word that is really strike me, which is imposter syndrome. Because personally, I feel that as well at some time, and not only like imposter syndrome, but during also my capstone project is I'm taking so much time on like doing things like perfectionism. Like that is like make me taking so long time not getting things done, which is I believe in leadership. People need, even if we like in my level, which is leading this small project, which is a capstone, is you need a sense of uh doing things done, make things done, rather than only like think about it like to be more perfect.
Yes.
So how can person just manage imposter syndrome? So I think it's the barrier for unleashing the leadership which is inside the people.
Yeah. So I would see two parts of that question. One is around how do you balance technical precision with actually delivering a
Yes,
product,
thank you so
and
much.
one can hold you back from the other. I think that's natural, and I actually think it's a healthy thing, particularly for young academics,
Mm.
um, because technical precision is a good thing, and sometimes it's worth going down that rabbit hole to be technically precise because it helps you craft your expertise, um, and to understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and strengths and weaknesses of your method and your approach. But yes, the reality of the world is that we all are all working to timelines and deadlines.
Yeah,
So as you progress through your academic career, what you need to do is trade off the technical precision, with meeting the timeline. It's much more important to meet the deadline at the highest possible standard that you can. um, but for some particularly in health policy, deadlines are very strict and very real. Um, so it's better to have handed in a project that maybe has 2 or 3% diminished technical precision than not to have it delivered at all. In most instances, unless you're landing something on the moon when those 2% of precision are actually required, I would argue therefore that's probably more important. Um, but for most things, the delivery date is quite important.
can't
And then
agree.
imposter syndrome, well, look, it's very prominent in academia primarily, because I think we all have high expectations for ourselves. And often we feel as though we're not meeting those expectations because we live in a world where we're often being rejected, we're not getting papers published, we're not getting grants. So there is a perceived level of critique of us everywhere in the world. So it's easy to put that onto ourselves, but that's why we need to celebrate the very good work that we often do in academia.
Can't agree more. Yeah. I think like um the small wins is the route for the big wins. So we
Yes.
need to appreciate these small wins in order to complete our journey. That's really fabulous. Thank you. We can move on to our second part, which is Uh, and this subject we use the public health leadership and management attributes wheel. And the slice that is I'm truly interested in and working on, uh, the area that I want to develop in my personality is management. And management is a broad term, but I'm interested more in management in terms of people, self, and time. And we can talk about the self, which is the X factor that is what make people different. I'd love your insights since you are like managing. I read that as 80 staff on the Center of Health Policy. I'm really interested to know how to manage this large number of people to drive impact.
We're actually at 130 now in the
130,
centre, so
impressive,
it's much
Adam.
bigger. um, so I think the first thing is to be humble and recognise that my contribution to the success of this centre is very small. Um, the true success comes from not only the individuals but the collectives working together. So most of my job is to facilitate that productive collaboration, to try and facilitate a friendly working environment and a cohesive work environment. And I think to encourage those with the expertise to reach out to the right partners, the right collaborators to ensure that their potential is met. I have found, and I know from business, for example, that they talk about managerial structures in sort of more of a business sense as individuals should have no more than 8 direct reports, and then those 8 should have no more than 8 direct reports, and then very quickly you're going out to your trees because how one person at a centre director level very quickly can get down to 135 when you branch it out as 8 to 8. I've often heard that in business, and in my experience, I actually think there's quite a lot to that concept of having a branched out managerial structure. That doesn't mean that I have nothing to do with people who are down further down the branches. It just means that I have my direct reports. That number is much smaller. Um, Otherwise, it's unmanageable. So I find that very productive. Um, it's also, I think, been nice as a director coming into a role that I've been at this university only for 4.5 years now, to bring a fresh pair of eyes. We've grown significantly. When I joined as director 4.5 years ago, we were 35 staff. We're now 130 staff. Um, Most of that success has been due to individuals within our centre and elsewhere, but also I and others who have been new to the centre have come in with fresh strategic eyes, just to change direction here or there, just to make a decision here or there, or a suggestion here or there for a new avenue of funding, like grant applications, things that we hadn't traditionally done, but I thought we had the expertise here to pull off, and we've been successful in that regard. So introducing a workable structure, reporting structure, and giving yourself the freedom and the time to try and have a strategic overview of components, but also the entirety of the centre, I think has been, for me, part of the most rewarding part of the role.
I see, I see. So the tactic is using some frameworks to facilitate the management process.
Yeah,
Fabulous. I read the book for James Clear, which is Atomic Habit. And I believe when you want to make an impact or something like big
yeah,
in you, you should start with one. He said like 1% each day will lead to
yeah.
something bigger. So what is your tactics or advices that you use in daily basis that could build great leaders or to help you manage yourself or your time as well? Especially with different responsibilities, because I believe when family come in and other
Yeah.
responsibilities and there, so it's need high level of leading these stuff in your life.
Yeah, so maybe the time management one is the easy one. That's very difficult to do. I do joke about email today being completely out of control. I'm just looking down. I have 5,528 unread
No
emails.
way.
Um, But that's okay because I can just give up on it. When it reaches that, then it's a failed medium, in my opinion. 40 years ago, academics didn't turn up to work with 500 envelopes to open throughout the day. And yet somehow we're expected to do that with email now. So time management is the hard part, but it's possible. So prioritization is key there. But I like the sound of that book. I think the 1% approach is sensible. I work in health policy, so patience is a virtue. And sometimes you can go for periods of drought, and then suddenly there are floods. And that's because policy windows open and close, and you need to be ready for when those policy windows open and suddenly all those years of drought are made up for in a shorter period of time. But the number one thing I think I do to maintain impact and success as I measure it is to maintain relationships.
Relationship.
Um, yeah, maintain trustworthy, collaborative relationships with policymakers at all levels. Because these are hardworking individuals in government agencies, in non-government agencies, in departments and elsewhere, um, who are working tirelessly in a field that often has little appreciation. They often have the same vision as I do for what impact looks like in terms of improved health for a population. So they're partners. Um, and I think developing those relationships, maintaining those relationships, probably been my single greatest key to delivering policy impact, because all of the academic work can happen, but it means nothing unless you've got the relationships in which to translate it to real world action.
Can't agree more. That's really fabulous when you mentioned the time management, but I would like to add something on it, which is energy management, because sometimes,
Yes.
yeah, you manage time, but your energy is
Yeah.
not in that point you can.
Right.
So I just
Very
a
well said.
to energy
Yeah.
management. Adam, this was like eye-opening and great learning experience. Thank you so much for your clear, practical advice. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in. Stay tuned for our next episode. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thanks, Amjad. That was fun.